Well, and you're absolutely right. All the data suggests that Latino families do value education at all levels and know its importance. The problem is complex because there are factors that include the preparation they're receiving in the schools, the quality of the schools, the quality of the teaching. There are motivational factors that are also very, very important. One of the things that I think is key, because we know what works, we know what it takes to get a student to succeed. The importance of providing a social support network for these students. A group of individuals that have had experience with college, many of them and their families, they've never been to college. So I think from our perspective, it's motivational, it's changing attitudes, it's changing expectations. You know, one troubling statistic, while you said that Latino youth understand the value of education, the troubling component of that is that many of them feel it's not for them, that they can't aspire to it, they can't afford it, and other issues like that.
I think Clarence, Carlos said something very useful when he talked about peer support. If you're in a class with 25 other kids and all of you are convinced that this is a world that's meant for other people, it's kind of hard to have them believe that it's worth it to do what's necessary to get through, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, I believe in consistency in trying to educate a student or a youth. You know, you have to be real consistent with that person. And you have to show them that you want to be involved in their life, you know, because they want more than what the family is offering them, you know, especially with us work with them on a regular basis. They want to know that you're there, you know. If you're not there, then they just feel like, hey, you know, they can go mess with their friends, their buddies. And I heard kids say, well, school don't be teaching me anything. So it made me think he know more than what the teacher know. But then when you have to realize that, you know, it's not the school that think, it's himself. But you have to bring that to their attention, you know, because they try to think beyond the walls of the school because they out there on the street.
You've already been beaten up pretty good by school by the time you're 16 or 17 in one of these high schools. Maybe when you say, school's not teaching me anything, it's sort of a defense against the system that you you haven't succeeded in so far. I mean, what kind of attitudes do you see from these kids?
Well, a lot of them has already had their mind made up that when they wake up, they're not going to school no way. And when they go to school, they go for a different reason. You know, the reasons could be unknown to us, but their attitude towards is going to school because they think that it's more simpler to live. You know, you gotta remember, most of the kids are 17, 18, they basically live underneath their parents. And their parents are still taking care of them at 18 and 19 years old. So the important is that the parents don't make it important for them to work and go to school. They don't really think that they have to do anything. So life is kind of short, you know, because they don't know anything about the past tense of life like we do. You know, they just live for right now. And right now, that their parents is not pushing them, not making them get out the house, not making them, you know, report to school, not making them bring homework in, you know, not making them study, because they're 16 and 17 years old. They just like the leader of the house now. So you have to really find other ways, like people like ourselves who kind of like walk with them and let them know how important it is that life has changed. Is that you can't even get an apartment today without a decent job making $35,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. That's for an apartment. So just imagine a young man who never worked. So how you think he'll be living without no education or a job?
Delegate, are the seeds planted for these kids who are convinced that finishing high school is not for them, really when they're in 6th grade and 8th grade, 3rd grade?
Absolutely, earlier. I really think that our systems are not structured to ensure that these kids that are not the self-selected, the privileged ones whose parents have had graduated from high school and have had a very successful path of education and are going to be reinforcing all of those behaviors from very early on. If they don't have that, I think the school systems have to do much more than what they're doing. Graduation is a 12-year process. A kid doesn't arrive in 10th, 11th grade and say, oh, I think I'm going to drop out. They have been dropping out all along the way. they have been missing out on preparation for graduation all along the way. Our schools have a terrible system of sorting kids. And kids that don't have the privilege of having a strong educational motivation at home are being put into classes where they really are not being prepared to be successful. When a kid can't read at 3rd grade, they're already getting a message about themselves. Teachers are giving a message over 12 years. We have less expectations of you. You're probably not going to make it. By the time they get into middle school and move on to high school, they are so far behind in their learning that the natural thing is for them to be pushed out or dropped out. I think we need to intervene and do prevention early on. I have a bill, for example, that is going to look at attendance in kindergarten and 1st grade. Research has shown that that is where the habits of attending and attention and time on task start. Yet our schools take attendance but don't do anything about those kids that are missing 10%. And already we know that that is a predictor for dropouts. Our schools have to do much more.
So if I took a list of the kids who are leaving school after 11th grade and looked back at their early school career, 1st grade, 2nd grade, I'd already see which kids aren't going to do well?
Totally predictable. You can see it by, they are clear milestones in learning. As I said, very early on, 3rd grade, reading. If you're not reading on grade level in 3rd grade, you're going to be starting to fall behind. As you go into middle school, if you're not having those preparations in math, you're not going to be able to do algebra. Algebra is your gateway, not just to college, but to any other preparation. You can see that, and that's where I think we're not holding our schools accountable to intervene as early as possible and get those kids ready for graduation.
Well, Susan Abravanel, as discouraging as those numbers are, we also know that you can't be 6 again. So if you've got a kid standing in front of you who's 16, we have to have some strategies to answer the needs they bring to you right at that moment in 10th, 11th grade.
Right.
We got some, though, right?
Yes, and I'm going to suggest that we really need to refocus the 3 R's. But the 3 R's are rigor, relevance, and relationship in this particular case. Rigor in that we need to ratchet up the expectations that we're putting on all young people. If you, for example, take a student who is not reading and you don't have the expectation that he or she will become a reader, then you are essentially planning out their future. So we need to have those high expectations for all students and provide the supports that they can reach.